let's get started then. So good afternoon. My name is Maddy Boehme. I am an autoimmune encephalitis survivor and vice president alongside the fabulous Sally Carney for an awesome organization by the name of Hashimoto's Encephalopathy Alliance, or HESA for short. So thank you so much for inviting me out to Dallas. Before we get started, I want to say another thank you to all the wonderful people and organizations who put on this amazing event where we can all sort of come together as one big encephalitis family and share in our knowledge and struggles and triumphs with something so rare. It's kind of nice to get to meet somebody else just like you, right? I'm also looking to connect with anyone who has had experience with the subject of transitional care. This is currently a hot topic in the AE community right now, and if this is you, please, please, please come talk to me or anybody from HESA after this, or shoot me an email, shoot me a message on Facebook, whatever works. I really need to talk to you. And last thing, I promise, I understand that we have some free time after this, and if you have any questions that come to mind during my presentation, or you have anything that you want to contribute to the conversation, I would love to hear from you. While you listen, please write down any questions you have or comments that come to mind during the presentation, because if you're like me and you struggle with memory issues, you gotta write stuff down or you forget. So don't be afraid to come and say hi. I'd love to meet you. I'm very excited to share my story, but I really enjoy connecting with people and hearing other people's stories as well. So it's not just all about me. So let's get started. So first off, duck or a rabbit? Yes. So how many of you see a duck when you look at this picture? Sure. All right, all right. And how many of you see a rabbit? Sure. All right, a little bit of both here. Well, you're all correct. So it is in fact a duck or a rabbit, depending on how you look at this picture. So you might be thinking, okay, what does a duck rabbit have to do with encephalitis? Well, how many of you have ever heard of a paradigm shift? Yes, a couple of you. Okay, so the Merriam-Webster definition of a paradigm shift is an important change that happens when the usual way of thinking about or doing something is replaced with a new and different way. So this duck rabbit is an example of a paradigm shift. The picture itself is not changing, or the way you originally viewed it is not changing. But when you have to shift the way you look at the picture, when you have to replace your thinking with a new and different way, you can see the thing, either the duck or the rabbit, you didn't see in the first place. So now this is exactly how encephalitis has affected me, both physically and mentally. Physically, I have not changed as a person on the outside. I still look like Maddy Boehme. But physically on the inside, encephalitis quite literally changed my brain and my usual way of thinking about or doing something, and replaced it with a new and different way. I like to describe it as somebody going up to the control panel in my brain and just going like this to all the buttons, and then just walking away. And then you're left to deal with this mess, right? So this paradigm shift physically changed my brain and changed my perspective. But this unexpected shift somewhat forced me psychologically to change the way I looked at and lived my life. And at first that wasn't something easy for me to cope with. But I'll get back to sharing more about that a little bit later. So before I share my story, I want to get comfortable and break the ice a little bit more. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about me as a person. So I'm from the small town of Lamars, Iowa, which is around 800 miles from here in Dallas. And don't worry, I didn't drive here. I took a 2-hour flight. It was pretty okay. Lamars is known as the ice cream capital of the world because we are home to Wells Blue Bunny Ice Cream, which is the world's largest producer of ice cream novelties. So that's kind of cool because, yeah, I love ice cream. But honestly, other than that, that's pretty much it for Lamars. I am the oldest in my family at 22 years old. I have one brother, Morgan, who is 20 years old, and a little sister, McKinnon, who is 14, and a French bulldog named Duke, who's about 2 years old. I currently study graphic design at a local community college. I become a very visually creative person post-encephalitis, and the graphic design program has really catered to the way my brain works and that I learn best by doing and making, and not so great by reading and memorizing like I used to be able to do. A little over a year ago, I started sharing my journey with encephalitis publicly as I became very passionate about the subject after my own experiences. And by overwhelming response, I became encouraged and supported by local community to continue sharing my story, got involved with HESA, and now, well, here I am. So thank you for having me out. This is really cool. So now a little bit more about my journey with autoimmune encephalitis. So my journey with autoimmune encephalitis started when I was 16 years old. At the time, I was a sophomore in high school. And up until my sophomore year of high school, I had fairly what would be considered normal life in our society. I was blessed to be born into a wonderful, loving, supportive family and got along great with my siblings. Well, most of the time, we got along great. A lot so with my brother, who was only a year apart from me, so we were kind of the best of friends growing up. I went to school every day, and I very much enjoyed school. I excelled in my classes and was often put into advanced learning groups and then transitioned to challenge class, they called it middle school. In high school, I was ranked 5th in my class, and I never really struggled with anything when it came to learning. I got along well with my teachers because I was fairly quiet, introverted, and well-behaved. I was in extracurricular activities outside of school hours, and my favorite being large group speech competition offered through our school. I was very into music at the time and taught myself how to play electric guitar. I worked at a local coffee shop and really enjoyed being a barista there, getting to make some step money and make some cool coffee creations. I had a fantastic group of friends. We spent every weekend hanging out, having a good time, attending high school football games, or just hanging out in each other's basement, eating pizza, having Mario Kart competitions. Yeah, so at the time, my only worries in life were stuff like what I was gonna wear tomorrow, or if I was gonna get a good grade on that geometry test. You know, the typical high school problems. Life was easy for me, and I had never really known any true struggle and hardships. Little did I know, at the age of 16, that was all about to completely change for me. It was about halfway through my sophomore year of high school when things took a turn. I started to have these very strange spells, we called them, at the time where I would lose the ability to walk and talk. I would cry uncontrollably for hours at a time, and I had no idea why I was crying. As time went on, these spells became more frequent and a lot more severe, becoming seizure-like and stroke-like in presentation. I developed severe insomnia. And insomnia, like something straight from the ground below, to put it kindly. Nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, would touch this insane insomnia I was having. No deep breathing, no drugs, no amount of lavender essential oils or praying to God to even get 1 hour of sleep, nothing. I also started to struggle with school. Yes, me, struggle with school. Specifically, my memory started to be an issue for me. I do remember a time I was taking a test. It was a multiple choice test. I would read the question, and then I would read the answers, and then I forgot the question I just read, so I'd reread the question, only to forget all the answers I just read. I remember that so clearly because I kept trying to read the answer and the question, and after so many times, I was sitting in my chair ready to cry because I couldn't answer the question no matter how many times I tried to read and process and understand it. I just remember that very first moment of, what is going on with me? Why can't I do this? Am I going to finish this test? Along with memory, reading started to become difficult for me. I would type with my hands, in close chunks because I wasn't able to focus and kind of sort out those lines of text and process what I was reading. I became what I understand now to be a bit dyslexic. I struggled to write and organize my thoughts and get out what I was trying to say in my head onto paper. I, for the first time in my life, was struggling with school, and it was clear there was something going on with me. Junior year rolled around and things continued to progress. And while my classmates were all out doing regular high school things like finding dates for the prom or going to high school football games, I was often headed for the ER as my symptoms continued to get worse. I was such a frequent flyer at our local ER, it got to the point where most of the hospital staff knew me by name. The only thing they really knew to do for me at the time was to load me up with large amounts of painkillers and sedatives until my body would just stop. I started to become sensitive to lights and sounds, where I was wearing sunglasses indoors and I had earplugs because it all just irritated my head so much, as best as I can describe it. I had an excruciating, burning pain in the right side of my head and neck that at times my mom recalls me trying to pull out my hair and bang my head against things for relief. I did eventually find out some relief for this pain. Bags of ice and put them directly on my head. No towel, no nothing, just straight ice on my hot burning head, and it felt like heaven to me. The visits to the ER eventually became so routine that they became my new day-to-day reality. And because of all of this going on, I missed my junior year of high school, and instead we went to several doctors searching for answers. Some of them didn't know what was wrong with me, and some of them said this was all in my head, and I quote one doctor who told me I need to go home and find a good therapist. I was deemed as the high achiever who put way too much stress on herself to be perfect, or the girl who had had something traumatic happen to her that she was keeping it all inside and wasn't telling anyone. After one ER visit, the doc on the floor had decided to send me and my mom to have me admitted to a psychiatric facility, but thankfully my mom's mama gut told her that this was not the solution to what was going on with me. She very thankfully did not leave me there. Things continued to progress, and I became very irritable for no reason. I was not super pleasant to be around, as my parents can attest to. One of my closest friends at the time described me as impulsive, with a crazy mood and a bad memory. And because of this, I struggled to keep friends, and my family struggled to deal with this new Maddy who was kind of awful to be around. So while many doctors couldn't crack my mysterious case, eventually we came across one doctor who could. I ended up being diagnosed with autoimmune encephalitis, which most of you essentially know that one day, for unknown reasons, my body mistakenly decided to start attacking my brain. I was admitted to the hospital and began treatments of high-dose steroids and IVIG right away, and things finally started to go in a little bit of a better direction for me. We had an answer, we had treatment, and they all lived happily ever after, right?
Here.
Yeah, no, as all you encephalitis survivors know, that the diagnosis is really only the beginning of the journey ahead, unfortunately. Remember when I said that encephalitis goes like this to the control panel in your brain? Well, yeah, we had finally reached the top of this mountain of a journey, only to find there's another mountain on the other side called Mount Brain Injury. The cleanup of what the AE had done. But this was never really something that was explained to me when I was first diagnosed. So yeah, diagnosis, treatment, survival, it was all a blessing. And as many of you know, there are some not as fortunate to receive those things. But it definitely didn't come without its challenges. Every waking day of the last few years of my life has been spent in the clutches of this bully, I called it. With autoimmune encephalitis, there are standard treatment plans and protocols, but with it being such a new field in the medical world, it's also a lot of guess and test and tweak and add and subtract and adjust until you find the right combo of medicines that keep things under control, but give you the best functioning possible without overdoing it on your immune system, because you still need one of those, even if it doesn't like your brain. So I spent a lot of years dealing with my AE bully. It weighed me down with constant fatigue and pain like nothing I had ever experienced before. I would have a lot of days where my head and my brain burned and it felt like it had been tossed in a frying pan and seared to a crisp. And it was so exhausting fighting to be normal, physically and psychologically exhausting. I tried to ignore my disease, to push through the pain and pretend as if my body had the capabilities of a normal person. I've been trying for years since becoming sick to live like everyone else, to live a normal life, the typical go to high school, go to college, get a job, get married, raise a family, the American dream. I craved that and I chased after that, and I mean, rightfully so. Everybody wants a normal, successful life, right? Now I'm gonna completely change gears and go back to the duck rabbit paradigm shift thing. I had my brain shifted and messed with, and I was left to deal with the aftermath of not quite being the exact same Maddie I was before AE. So by my 19th birthday, I had been dealing with the pain, the crashes, this less than normal life for almost 3 years. I was just waiting for a magic pill to get me back to my old struggle-free self, not understanding that, yes, some things would get better with a lot of time for my brain to heal, but some things would just never be the same. I had tried several different treatments. Some of these treatments helped, but none of them seemed to fix me enough to where I had a normal life like everybody my age. I was hopeful about finding a solution, and I spent years of my life thinking to myself, okay, this is the treatment that's gonna get me back to my old self, my old struggle-free life. Years spent in this weird, almost purgatory-like state of waiting around, expecting to get better at some point. Well, I should have known by then that nothing in my life was ever gonna turn out how I expected. During this appointment I had on my 19th birthday, my doctor explained to me that we had tried everything he knew to do for this disease. I'll never forget the moment that he looked me dead in the eyes and said, "This is as good as it's going to get." So let me tell you, this was not the best birthday gift I'd ever gotten. I was crushed as the reality of my disease hit me. I would never have that normal life I craved or be my old struggleless self again. This was it for me. This was my new normal. As you can imagine, it's pretty heartbreaking to have all your expectations of ever getting better completely just yanked out from under you. Everything normal you had ever hoped of and dreamed of doing in your life taken from you instantly. I grieved as anyone would. I bawled the moment we got in the car to leave the appointment, and I spent the rest of the day pretty down in the dumps. My mom took me to one of my favorite restaurants, Cheesecake Factory, later that day, and I broke down in tears at the table, unable to shake the news and enjoy the rest of my birthday. I mean, you know you're upset when not even cheesecake will make it better. But you see, life went on. And after a few days of grieving, I came face to face with my reality, which is when this paradigm shift hit me. I was faced with a choice for my life. I could continue to be down in the dumps about my situation, turn to unhealthy ways of coping with living, live my life in denial, stuck on an endless roller coaster of physical and psychological crashes, and just be plain miserable the rest of my life trying to chase the normal that would never be. But instead on that day, I made a different choice for my life. I decided to stop waiting around, expecting everything to be normal again. I realized that life is about letting go of our expectations about what life should be, about what society tells us our life should look like or what normal is. You see, life is about taking the challenges we're given and defying those expectations. And that was my paradigm shift moment. It was that simple shift in my thinking that was so incredibly freeing and completely changed the way I looked at my life. So I chose to start living the life I've been waiting around all these years to live. Because this disease is so unpredictable in nature, I don't know what the future holds for my health. I don't know when I might relapse. God forbid it ever happen again, but it does with AE, and to be completely honest, it's scary to think about. Every day is different. Some days are better than others. Things can change in the blink of an eye. So I live for every good day that I'm given. So I kind of think of that paradigm shift as the day my life really began. This shift in my thinking that dealing with autoimmune encephalitis had given me changed everything about me. I like to say it's the best worst thing that's ever happened to me because while I prefer to never, ever, 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 ever go through any of that ever again, so much good has come out of the worst time in my life. As cliche as it sounds, AE has given me things that money can't buy and school can't teach. I'm here to tell you that there can be good that comes out of having your brain all messed with. And I want to share with you the top 3 things that living with AE has taught me. So number 1, autoimmune encephalitis has made me fearless. Because yeah, after going through all that stuff I went through, there's really not a whole lot that scares me anymore. The excruciating pain, only putting freezing cold ice on my head would help. The scariness of feeling like you're losing your mind at the age of 16. The bajillions of pokes I probably had from all these tests and treatments. All I've got to say for the rest of my life is, bring it on, let's go. Everything else in life pales in comparison to what I've been through. As I went through my journey with AE, my family has given me the nickname Wonder Woman, and in recent years, I have really embraced that nickname because I really do feel like a Wonder Woman. I mean, physically not so much, but mentally I've got guns. No matter what comes my way, it's gonna take a heck of a lot to knock me off my feet. I've got autoimmune encephalitis. You're gonna have to try harder than that, life. That courage and confidence has given me the ability to do things like this because 5 years ago, before AE, there's no way you could have gotten me to stand up here and speak to a room full of strangers for half an hour. But now I'm like, yeah, I can totally handle that. I've been through scarier things. So the second thing AE has taught me is patience because, oh boy, has it really taught me patience. I'm sure both survivors and caregivers can attest to this one. I had to learn to be patient with myself, both physically and psychologically. Patience with being homebound and losing a lot of my freedom when things first got really crazy after treatment. It was a lot of hurry up and wait around to get better while everyone else my age was out doing life. And then after long chunks of time improving to the point I could start to get back to school in life, I face planted a lot. It was kind of like learning to ride a bike all over again. The first few months and years were like the wobbly stage of trying to ride a bike and finding a good regimen that kept my functioning stable, figuring out this new brain of mine, what I struggled with that was new to me, and trying to find ways to cope and overcome it. I did neuropsychological testing and evaluation that helped identify my strengths and weaknesses. I worked with an excellent team of psychologists that work with a lot of people with learning disabilities, and they help me learn ways to use my strengths to overcome my weaknesses, as well as recommended accommodations for school that would be helpful and medication that would aid me with my new attention issues. Patience and frustration with my new difficulties. Being the age I was at the time of illness and even the age I still am today, it's hard for me sometimes to watch all of my classmates going on living their normal lives and not want to compare myself to them or feel pressure to be where they are. Patience and acceptance of your journey does not have to equal everybody else's journey. My mom would always say to me, you have all your life to graduate and work for the rest of your life. And as I've grown older, I realized that she's absolutely right. Yes, you're right, Mom. Slow and steady wins the race. So have patience. You will get there. And the most patient building of the 8-week experience was learning to accept the new Maddy and to let go of old Maddy. I went to therapy every week for 3 years of my journey because A, encephalitis is traumatizing, no further explanation needed, and B, because I've had to learn to cope with the loss of essentially old Maddy. Not that all of old me was gone, but the things that used to not be so hard for me, the energy I used to have, the sharp, quick thinking brain I used to have, the memory I used to have. But through therapy, I've honestly come to love the new Maddy and have learned to be patient with her. I accepted my struggles instead of fighting my struggles. And the third and most important thing, because this is what this talk is all about, is in fact perspective. The paradigm shift of my existence. Ultimately, it opened my eyes to, you don't know what people deal with on a daily basis. You don't know what the person sitting next to you is going through or has gone through. I mean, some of us might know since this is an encephalitis conference, but if I hadn't just told you all my life story passing by in the street, you probably would have had no idea I've ever been through anything in my life or deal with what I deal with. And it was marrying those lessons of fearlessness and patience with this new perspective. I started to really live instead of waiting around to get better to start living. You don't know what tomorrow brings, so be fearless in the pursuit of life. Life is so freaking awesome most of the time. I appreciate school because there was a time when I couldn't go. I appreciate friends because there was a time when I didn't have any. I appreciate a good day because I have seen several bad ones. I appreciate life because I am a survivor. Not everyone with encephalitis gets that, and to those who have lost a loved one to encephalitis, I am deeply sorry. What more of a reason for us as survivors to live testament to those who were not as fortunate? Take what you've experienced, take your paradigm shift and use it. And that's what encephalitis has taught me. What has encephalitis taught you? I do have a Facebook page if you want to follow or connect me. I seriously love talking to people. I love people. I love you guys. Message me on Facebook. I would so love to share stories. And if anybody has any questions too, I can take a few. Otherwise, I know there's a break, and I know this is a really long day for all of us. So you can feel free to grab me for questions at some other point. I'm around here today and Sunday, so I would love to chat with you.
Thank you, Maddy.